That expensive winter utility statement is likely resting on your kitchen counter this very minute. All the while, the southern side of your home is quietly soaking in completely free thermal power every single day from late fall through early spring. You just haven't tapped into it yet. For about $5, a simple box attached to that exterior wall can blast 120-degree warmth straight into your living space. It requires zero electrical wiring, possesses zero moving mechanisms, and burns absolutely zero fuel. The home heating sector has been perfectly aware of this phenomenon since 1881. For nearly a century and a half, they have gone out of their way to keep you in the dark. In this breakdown, we are diving into the core physics, the industry cover-up, the $5 DIY setup, and the financial reality they desperately want to hide from you. Back in 1881, a man named Edward Morse secured a patent for this exact setup. Fast forward, and giants like the Ford Motor Company expanded this exact concept across 200,000 square feet of factory space. The United States Armed Forces even labeled the resulting energy efficiency as a core strategic asset. Meanwhile, an ordinary retired mechanic up in Minnesota threw his own version together using $37 worth of empty beer cans, slashing his winter heating expenses by 40% immediately. The scientific principles have remained identical since the late 19th century, yet your monthly heating statements just keep soaring. First up is the thermal ghost dilemma. Right at this moment, as your heating system kicks on and your gas dial turns, the south-facing exterior of your home is engaged in a process your local HVAC repairman conveniently forgets to bring up. Step outdoors on a brisk, sunny afternoon in January and place your bare hand firmly against your southern siding right at midday. It feels warm. It isn't freezing, it isn't just matching the chilly outdoor air, it is noticeably warm to the touch. The sun's rays have been beating down on that exterior since early morning, steadily transforming solar radiation into raw heat for hours on end. But that generated warmth isn't going anywhere helpful. It simply gathers on the exterior material before bouncing right back into the cold atmosphere. In physics, this is known as re-radiation, and it stands as the costliest error your property commits every single day the temperature drops. You are handing over $4.62 per therm to your utility provider to create warmth indoors. At the exact same time, the sun is offering that identical thermal payload to your exterior siding absolutely free of charge, and your home just tosses it to the wind. That is the thermal ghost. It represents the warmth you possess but simply cannot see. Have you ever noticed that slightly faded, sun-bleached patch of siding between the glass panes on your southern wall? That is your physical evidence. That is 4 decades of UV rays highlighting the precise location where cost-free heat has been landing every single winter, only to bleed uselessly back into the sky while you blindly pay your utility bills. However, the thermal ghost itself isn't what terrified the heating and cooling corporations. The genuinely terrifying part is what happened next. Point number 2 is the HVAC blackout. Back in the 1950s, massive natural gas pipelines finally expanded to cover every significant metropolitan area in America. Utility companies aggressively rolled out massive incentive structures, high volume rewards, and exclusive supplier contracts for any heating professional willing to push natural gas furnaces. Let's look at the basic economics. Imagine a plumber working in 1955. Installing a solar air heater netted him a single modest fee for cutting a couple of holes through an exterior wall. But installing a brand new gas furnace? That scored him a rebate from the gas company, a lucrative kickback from the manufacturer, elite supplier status, and a loyal customer who would be forced to call him back for maintenance every winter for the next 3 decades. It was never a fair fight. The push for furnaces had absolutely nothing to do with which heating method was actually superior. Fast forward to today, and the technical schools bankrolled by those same equipment giants teach incoming technicians exclusively about gas and electric setups. You will not find a single accredited HVAC curriculum in the United States that covers solar air heating. Not because the physics are flawed, but because the massive corporations funding those educational programs do not manufacture solar air boxes. Furthermore, the official building codes, heavily influenced by the major engineering and air conditioning societies, cemented motorized mechanical heating as the absolute legal minimum for any inhabited structure nationwide. You could attach a $5 solar heater to your exterior wall this afternoon, but the local building inspector will still legally mandate that a traditional furnace be wired up inside. Every single piece of that massive industry relies heavily on you remaining completely oblivious to the fact that a hollow box with a couple of vents can achieve the exact same result as your furnace for 4 to 6 hours every afternoon. There are no well-funded lobbyists fighting for solar wall panels. There is no massive trade union pouring money into researching a $5 contraption built out of spare parts from a local hardware store. The suppression isn't an outright ban. It is simply a total lack of advocacy. They didn't have to outlaw the technology. They merely had to ensure it was scrubbed from the textbooks, completely ignored in the building codes, and never once suggested by the professional standing in your living room, handing you a $5,000 estimate. Now, your logical brain is probably kicking in, thinking that if this was truly effective, somebody somewhere would have commercialized it by now. Well, somebody actually did. And it happened in 1881. Point number 3 is the 1881 proof. An American zoologist by the name of Edward Morse wasn't even trying to figure out home heating. His expertise was actually in brachiopods, tiny shelled marine animals, and he hopped on a steamship headed for Japan in 1877 just to study them. However, Morse possessed a relentlessly observant mind. As he journeyed across rural Japan, he spotted a clever architectural detail completely unrelated to marine biology. Traditional Japanese homes were purposefully positioned to face the winter sun. Their southern exterior walls utilized dark-colored materials, often shielded by semi-transparent screens. During the cold months, the ambient air directly adjacent to those specific walls felt remarkably warm, quantifiably, unmistakably heated, without a single flame being lit or a single ounce of fuel being burned. The sunlight struck the darkened surface. That surface transferred heat to the enclosed air pocket. That heated air then expanded, rising and flowing naturally into the living space. The Japanese had mastered this technique for hundreds of years. The exact same warmth your utility company bills you for every 30 days, they were gathering entirely for free using nothing but dark pigments and paper partitions. Morse returned to Salem, Massachusetts, and on the 5th of April, 1881, the United States Patent Office officially awarded him patent number 246626 for an invention he labeled a solar air heating apparatus. It was essentially a glass-fronted box affixed to a southern wall. It featured a blackened absorption layer inside, with airflow vents positioned at the upper and lower extremes. It created an endless circulation loop driven entirely by the thermal contrast between direct sunlight and cool shade. Zero electricity, zero fuel, zero mechanical parts. Eventually, that patent hit its 17-year expiration date. Morse returned his focus to seashells. His groundbreaking invention slipped quietly into the public domain, legally available for anyone to construct, and instantly became a massive financial threat to any corporation selling conventional heating. While that covers the historical timeline, the underlying physics is what makes this concept completely undeniable. Point number 4 is the convection lock. Let me walk you through the fundamental science your local heating technician conveniently skips over. Darker materials naturally soak up solar radiation and instantly translate it into thermal energy. This is known as radiation absorption, and it is the exact same reason why dark asphalt gets hot enough to cook breakfast on a July afternoon. By adding a layer of glass or clear polycarbonate, you effectively trap that newly created warmth. The clear material lets visible light pass through while completely blocking the infrared heat waves from bouncing back out. You are basically recreating the greenhouse effect inside a wooden box. Because heated air is physically less dense than frigid air, it naturally floats upward when trapped inside the panel. If you simply provide an upper opening for that hot air to escape into your living room, and a lower opening for cooler room air to get sucked back down into the panel to replace it, you establish an endless circulation loop. You don't need a blower, you don't need a motor, and you don't need a power outlet. The sheer variance in temperature does 100% of the heavy lifting. In physics, this phenomenon is called Thermosyphon Convection. The convection lock essentially powers itself and maintains its own momentum, requiring absolutely zero effort from you once it gets going, aside from basic sunshine. Now, your logical next question is likely, sure, the concept sounds easy, but exactly how much warmth are we actually talking about here? A standard 4 by 8 foot solar air unit easily generates anywhere from 1,000 to 3,000 BTUs every hour on a bright, crisp winter afternoon. The air blasting out of the top vent consistently registers between 80 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit. That is 27 to 60 degrees Celsius. Let that sink in. That is physically hotter than the air your forced air furnace blows through the expensive ductwork you spent $3,000 to put in. And these are not just optimistic laboratory estimations. These are proven field metrics recorded from units actively running in places like Alberta and Minnesota, where January chills plummet to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 29 Celsius. The very solar geometry that seems like a drawback actually plays to your advantage. A vertical panel facing true south in the dead of January sits much closer to a perfect perpendicular angle with the incoming sun rays than it would in the middle of summer. The darkest, coldest part of the year is precisely when the convection lock operates at peak performance. Before we dive into the actual construction, let's test your knowledge on the physics we just broke down. What is the peak output air temperature that a standard solar wall heater can generate? A. 40 degrees Fahrenheit. B. 80 degrees Fahrenheit. C. 140 degrees Fahrenheit. D. 200 degrees Fahrenheit. You have 10 seconds to drop your guess in the comments below. If you went with C, 140 degrees Fahrenheit, you are spot on. You are a well-constructed box utilizing a black aluminum mesh as the thermal absorber placed in direct winter sunlight will genuinely outperform your expensive furnace's output temperatures. That stark temperature contrast completely drives the convection lock, and that engine doesn't shut off until the sun finally dips below the horizon. Point number 5 is the $5 DIY build. Here is the exact blueprint of what you are assembling. You construct a simple rectangular frame out of basic 1x4 pine lumber. You pull black aluminum window screening tightly across the hollow interior to serve as your heat absorber, and you secure a sheet of clear polycarbonate across the front face to act as your glazing. Next, you core 2 4-inch circular vents straight through your southern wall, one down low near your baseboards and another high up toward the ceiling, using basic ducting to bridge the gap between the panel and your interior space. You run a bead of silicone caulking around every seam to seal it tight. Finally, you pop a cheap $3 plastic backdraft damper into the bottom intake vent. This is literally just a gravity-hinged flap that falls shut when the panel cools down, ensuring frigid night air can't reverse course and flood back into your living room. That is the permanent heavy-duty build, and it will run you roughly $50 in materials. But let's look at the actual $5 proof of concept. Grab an ordinary cardboard box, coat the inside with flat black spray paint, punch an intake opening near the bottom edge and an exhaust opening near the top, tape a sheet of clear plastic drop cloth over the front opening. Lean it back against a south-facing window or just prop it up right against your exterior southern wall. That is literally it. That is the exact convection lock that Edward Morse demonstrated way back in 1881, functioning perfectly on your property for the price of a single rattle can of paint. The laws of thermodynamics do not care if your framing material is premium pine lumber or recycled cardboard. The $5 cardboard variant isn't meant to permanently replace the $50 rigid build. Its purpose is to prove the science in your own backyard, giving you the confidence to eventually construct the real deal. And once you do commit to the permanent installation, the financial data is absolutely staggering. Point number 6 is the proof of scale. If this trick only functioned on a single shed in Minnesota, the industry's Blackout would have held up perfectly. But the concept scales massively. In 1992, an engineer from Canada named John Pollock started producing a system he dubbed Solar Wall. It consisted of dark, porous metal siding attached to southern-facing walls, leaving a tiny pocket of air beneath. A low-voltage fan pulls fresh air through thousands of tiny holes in the sun-baked metal. That pre-warmed air is routed straight into the building's main ventilation network. We are talking over 3,000 successful installations across 11 different nations. They documented a 20 to 50% reduction in total heating expenses, with the entire setup paying for itself in just 2 to 7 years. After that break-even point, the thermal offset is entirely free for the lifespan of the structure. And these buyers aren't off-grid. Ford Motor Company wrapped 200,000 square feet of their Ontario assembly plant in it. FedEx slapped it on northern distribution hubs. The United States military installed it at Fort Drum in New York, braving negative 20-degree January plunges. The Army's official evaluation didn't just call it an economic win. They classified it as a critical strategic edge. When a military base slashes its heating needs by 40%, it simultaneously cuts its logistical reliance on granular fuel supply chains. It's the exact same wooden box with the same 2 holes that Edward Morse patented in 1881. NASA knew
All right,
about it.
so this
Ford
line
knew
item
about
right
it.
here
Armed
confirms
Forces
the
knew
final
about it.
walkthrough of
Yet
the system.
The contractor standing in your kitchen still handed you a standard furnace quote. Which brings us to number 7, the financial math they pray you never calculate. Let's look at a standard American house over a 30-year span. You are looking at $60,000 to $90,000 poured into fuel, hardware, inevitable replacements, and those lovely maintenance visits. A new furnace sets you back $3,000 to $8,000 and survives roughly 15 to 20 years, meaning you are guaranteed to buy at least 2 or 3 of them. Your winter gas bill drains another $1,500 to $3,000 annually, depending on your local climate. Every time a technician comes out, that is another $200 to $400, and yes, they will eventually tell you that your heat exchanger is cracked and the whole unit is compromised. They aren't lying to you. The manufacturers deliberately engineer these machines to fail the moment the warranty expires. Now compare that to a solar air installation on that exact same house. It costs $200 to $300 once. Your lifetime financial retention sits between $30,000 and $63,000. Really process that figure. 63 grand. That covers a university degree. That is a massive chunk of your retirement portfolio. That is the initial deposit on that investment property you thought was out of reach. And all of that value has been crashing into your southern exterior and radiating into the cold sky since the moment you signed your mortgage. A single unit neutralizes 15 to 25% of your heating requirements on a bright winter afternoon. An array of 4 to 6 units drops it by 50 to 70%. Your monthly utility bill is not a mandatory cost of living. It is a highly profitable business model that strictly relies on you never putting your bare hand against your own exterior wall in the dead of winter. Before we wrap this up, let's test your memory on the financials. Over a 30-year timeline, what is the top-end estimated financial retention from installing a complete solar wall array? A, $5,000, B, $15,000, C, $30,000, D, $63,000. Take 10 seconds and lock in your answer down below. If you guessed D, $63,000, you are paying close attention. That is the exact mathematical reality the HVAC giants desperately need to hide. $200 or $300 a single time, matched up against 90 grand over 3 decades. The Convection Lock will never ask you to sign a yearly maintenance contract. It strictly requires your exterior wall and a cloudless sky. That invisible thermal ghost has been visiting your property every single afternoon since before your name was on the deed. You have been continuously billed $4.62 per therm to artificially manufacture the exact same thermal energy indoors that the solar system is dumping outside your window for free. The only difference today is that your eyes are finally open to it. The most valuable, heavy-duty heating appliance you will ever own was already constructed for you by the sun, completely free of charge. But throwing a $5 box on your wall is merely the beginning. There is a robust $300 homestead heating rig that entirely eliminates the need for a $30,000 furnace overhaul. It operates on these exact same physical laws, and the major heating corporations have kept it just as tightly under wraps. We are breaking down that exact system in the next video, so click over and I will see you right there.